A.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali. I am Attorney Zulu Ali with the Justice Watch crew: Rosa Nunez, Michael Bilal Clark, Dr. Kil Bashir, Andrea Rodeman, and Ryan Rose. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical legal and social justice issues that are impacting our communities. Also joining us today is a very, very, very special guest, Coach Richard Johnson, who actually is a former collegiate athlete and has been coaching sports for how long now?
25 years.
For 25 years. So I thought it would be fitting to bring him back to on our subject today, which is about Shadur Sanders. And I mean we've heard a lot about what's been going on with the draft this year and how he was chosen in the fifth round. And for those of you who may not be familiar with the situation, is that Shadur Sanders is the son of the great Deion Sanders, who was a great defensive back in at Florida State, as well as at several teams in the NFL. He also was a great baseball player as well, a very good baseball player. He played both in the NFL and played professional baseball and won a couple of Super Bowls. Actually, the only person who played in a World Series and a Super Bowl. But at any rate, after having a stint as a broadcaster, he became a coach, beginning first a collegiate football coach, first at Jackson State, bringing two of his sons, Shadur and Shiloh, with him. Two of his sons that he had coached ever since they were probably in Pee Wee football. Coached them in high school and went and turned around the Jackson State program. And Shadur did a great job as a quarterback at Jackson State. Then, of course, he goes to Colorado, turns around that program. Shadur was a quarterback. Shiloh was a defensive back. Shadur had a really good career, really good performance as a collegiate quarterback. I guess predicted to go in the NFL within many of those who said the first five rounds, if not at least the top 20 or at least the first round period. And what happened is the first day of the draft, he doesn't get drafted at all. Doesn't get picked up in the first round, doesn't get picked up in the second round, doesn't get picked up in the third round, doesn't get picked up in the fourth round, and eventually he's drafted by the Cleveland Browns in the fifth round after 143 other players got chosen before him. So, I mean, somebody said that something in the milk, like my grandmother said, something in the milk ain't clean. So, and of course, you're getting different stories. Some believe that the NFL, there was some sort of collusion going on, right? They basically purposely, for whatever reason, they think they're punishing, Deion Sanders because of his brash personality. And he had went on, I actually saw the podcast when he said that there's some teams that he wouldn't allow his son to play for. They said, some say it was to put Deion in his place. Some were saying that it had to do with the fact that Shadur didn't do a really good job, in his interviews. I know that he didn't do the combine, did he? I don't believe he did. So he didn't do the combine, and say they were going to, I guess, put him in his place, right? I mean, that's some of what we've heard. So, I mean, and this is like, the theories as to why he did not go in the first or at least the second round seem to be something that's puzzling to not only spectators and novice, but professionals as well. Those who are really familiar with the game, former players, they can't figure out, why he went so low in the draft. So you got several different type of theories as to why he went, where he did. And so, I mean, I think it's a huge issue because, you have Dion, who I mean, I have a lot of respect for Dion. I like the way he did it. I like the way that he, basically was looking out after his sons, and like most people would do, they're going to try to give their children the best opportunities that they possibly can. I mean, from at least, I mean, I don't know them personally, but from looking afar, Shadur always seemed like a pretty down to earth, very well respected, respectful young man. He doesn't, I mean, he does the watch thing and that sort of thing, but that's not a big deal. I mean, that you can't, that's not a huge issue. But they kind of, when they use the comparison, they use the comparison of the Manning family, where Archie Manning said that he didn't want any of his kids paying for a West Coast team. Didn't nobody really say, that was trash or that was disrespectful, nor did it in any way, I don't believe, affected his kids, right? In fact, one got drafted by San Diego, but immediately transferred to what, the Giants, right? Traded. So, it's kind of like, you can, you know, if you look at it from that perspective, then it seems like, when he said that I don't want my sons going to certain teams. I mean, considering that, it doesn't seem, it seemed like there's a double standard, right?
Right.
So I don't know, Coach. Talk to me.
Well, first thing I want to do is definitely say what an excellent job that Deion Sanders did in terms of raising his son and giving him the skill set
Right.
to be in this conversation. A lot of times, as black men, we have absentee fathers. Here's a situation where we have a father who was able to be with his sons, plural, every step of the way.
Right.
So I definitely want to say that that makes a big difference. But one of the things that I'm looking at is, and we all know it in any profession, what is considered being professional, and who deems the standard for what is considered professional. Of course, we look at the owners. When we get into a situation where we are actually selling ourselves, and that goes from the high school level all the way to the college. I mean, to the professional level now. How do we sell ourselves to let them know that we are professional? The standards that they set, is that our attire? Is that our vernacular? Is that how we conduct ourselves at all times? I mean, these are different things that the establishment has showed us that there is a set of rules that are unwritten that must be followed.
Right.
And we all know that in education, I can't dress and I can't wear anything I want as an educator
Right.
with the kids there. When I come to work, I have to come to work in the standard which is set, which is unwritten, right? There isn't anything really that says, hey, I can't have earrings and tattoos and different things of that nature, but we don't do that.
Right.
All right. And who sets that standard? So as my father would say, and as I tell the kids, your talent is going to dictate what you can do according to that standard. If somebody feels that, an owner feels that no matter what, at all costs, you're going to make them money, they're going to take you no matter what you're doing. We've seen people do far worse and have records and do different
Yeah.
things than have been taken because they were exceptional talent.
Right.
You take a thing, a person like a Randy Moss, often misunderstood, but he went to few schools there and was able to be taken. Or Warren Sapp, when he came through, he slid a little bit, but they understood that you can't keep him off the field. The situation is this: when you have a lot of quarterbacks who are similar in skill, right? So now that really, how we think you fit into that standard really becomes very important, right? Say you have a Mike Vick, okay, when he came out, and there were some things that just an exceptional talent, like a Deion Sanders, just a physical specimen. We've never seen anything like this. Shador wasn't quite that. good player. But if you don't have that, you have to fit. Are we saying that you have to fit in that mold? And that's what they've proven here. That if you are parallel, or if there's some any discrepancy that you aren't the highest echelon of athlete, to where just a physical specimen, then you have to act within those standards.
Wow, that's interesting, man. I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, I've been trying to, I've been busting my brain just like a lot of people has been in regards to this. I mean, I hear a lot of stuff on the internet in terms of, it all boils back down to his father. His cockiness, and it was one time in their life that, hey, you don't have no control over this. We gonna do this. You can't dictate whether or not he's gonna get drafted here or there. So it was a slap in the face to him. But in reality, like you said, it doesn't matter when it comes down to money. I mean, we can look at the NBA, for instance. Ron Artest. We can look at people like who was it? Russell Westbrook. All of these people, but teams eventually got them, regardless of their problems, because it was money involved. But when it comes down to this situation, it makes you think like, was it the cockiness? Because I don't think it was a cockiness. I mean, I think a lot of people get confidence misinterpreted as cockiness, and I don't think it was cockiness. But he done a great job, and a lot of people, that's a fear. Believe it or not, that's a fear when you have someone that's confident, especially as a black man, that's saying, "Look, I'm gonna dictate where my son is gonna go, who he's gonna go to, how he's gonna do it." A lot of people saying, "No, you can't." So I think it was just a check. Like, you can't do this. We're not going to allow you to do this. So get in line.
I think to a certain extent, because to imagine that, what is it, 32 teams?
32.
That 32 teams could have passed on him that many times. What even makes it even further questionable is the fact that he has, you said money. I mean, this kid is going to be a moneymaker. If he was to start with Cleveland, if they put him in the starting lineup, Flacco couldn't fill, in my opinion, couldn't fill those seats the way that Shador could. In fact, I can tell you that, in my older years, I haven't been much of a college football fan, watched much college football. I mean, being from Tennessee, I was obviously a big, watched SEC, a lot of SEC football, specifically Tennessee and Alabama. Those were the teams that I followed growing up. But in the later years, I never really had no desire to watch football. But when Dion went to Colorado, man, I was watching Colorado football.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were paying attention to football just simply because it was bigger than football. You know what I mean? And I think that they're saying now that his jersey is. I've heard different stories. Some say the best selling freshman. I mean, not freshman, but rookie jersey, and some say one of the top in the NFL. So a team like, that's the thing that kind of like, kind of is puzzling, is that he's going to. There's nobody in the draft, in my opinion. Probably people didn't even watch the draft except to see where he was going.
Right.
Yeah.
Him and Travis Hunter.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing that's kind of puzzling, is that he's going to be a moneymaker no matter where he goes. And if for some reason what's confusing is he's in you're thinking, okay, he's in such a bad position, being a fifth round draft pick, and there being so many quarterbacks. You got
Right.
Flacco.
Right.
You got the other guy that was traded for. I can't think of his name. They traded for somebody. He was a first round draft pick, but he ended up getting on a team. I can't think of his name. Another guy that they said he's injured, but then the guy that was drafted before him, the quarterback, and him. So you got, and so the way that the NFL works is your draft position means so much.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yes.
and so now, I mean, how is he going to? Because Flacco obviously can just get out on the field with him being a veteran and he's 40 years old, he's been in the league for a long time. He can play, but you know, it, it's just confusing to me how they would take him in the fifth round. And he had so much. I think, honestly, had he win in the first round, I really believe he could have got on the field and made something out of it
Oh,
off
man.
the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt with that. Again, probably one of the only true Cleveland Browns fans in Southern California. That's my hometown. Shout out to the land. But yeah, jersey sales will be there, but this is a little bit different, just in terms of, we can say it, classical conditioning, right? When we come to certain interview process, when we come up for jobs and different things, like brother said earlier, are the owners, are the coaches, general managers, offensive coordinators, does your presence scare them? When you come with your father, who's Deion Sanders, and I might have an offensive coordinator that's a first year or second year, I might have a coach who might be a second year coach. If your father has more presence than your coach, that potentially can be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If your father, who has been a great and electric commentator for the NFL Network and has gone on various shows that are aligned with the NFL, and has been an awesome voice, like an authority on football. And you're bringing this in when he said his son is going to go in the top 5, right? You're bringing that. You have these new coordinators. The owners have a situation on their hand, right? And you have a kid who doesn't need the money. He's already made millions in NIL money. So his name, image, and likeness has already got him millions of dollars. Now, his name, image, and likeness, what if that supersedes the pay for the coach? Do the owners feel that they can control that
Right.
situation? I mean, we're talking about ultimate control.
Yeah.
We're talking about, hey, this is my team. This is the standard that we set.
Yeah.
These are our rules. This is what we see as being professional for that position.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and we have a lot of guys that are confident. We have some guys that are cocky. We've seen from Antonio Brown to and Randy Mosses. We've seen guys like that. We've seen Jerry Rice, who was confident.
Yeah.
And Jerry Rice tell you, anybody you put in front of me, I'm dogging that
Yeah.
guy.
Right.
So I mean, everybody who plays the sport that's professional has that about him.
Yeah.
But they don't have that. What this kid has.
Yeah.
This kid
Yeah.
is coming in with, he's been in the spotlight since he was in high school.
Yeah.
They've gone to 2 programs. And when I, as a young man, can say, look at my record. Everywhere I've gone, I've changed programs.
Yeah.
Which is true. But at the same token, his father has been there at every single step of the way. The question, and I do say question, that is unanswered, will he be able to do it without Deion Sanders being there and able to call the shots?
Right.
That's the question.
Yeah.
And that's what people are saying, hey, are we taking a chance here?
Yeah.
So now we're bringing everything. We're bringing all the fanfare in the media. We have a figure that's almost larger than life, not for his play now. His play is there. Don't get me wrong. But your father, what you guys have done, this other stuff, you've had a team, right? Let alone he's been with Travis Hunter all those years, right? So now here it is. You're outside of all that.
Yeah.
There were some definite questions there.
Yeah. What's interesting, you said something about control, and I do believe that control probably had a lot to do with, maybe, but well, for sure, control had a lot to do with it. Because what I was thinking was that somebody used this as an example. They used Bill Belichick as an example. How when he left the New England the Patriots, no matter what you think about Bill Belichick, how in the world could he not get a job in the NFL? Right? You know what I mean? And I think that some of that same control issues may have an impact on when I bring, Jerry Jones is notorious for having issues with coaches that he can't control.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Being that guy. So, but yeah, that would be a question if you're bringing um, Shador Sanders to the team, you're also bringing Dion and the family and
Yeah.
everything else that comes with that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And with all due respect to Archie Manning is not Deion Sanders
No,
Yeah.
no.
by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, he's nothing. His kid's career far exceeded his career. Although he was, a decent quarterback, he just wasn't that guy to me. So, but I think that, does race play a part in that? If if Tom Brady had a son that was a quarterback, would they do that to Tom Brady's son, or would they do that to um, some other, outstanding quarterback? Who was the guy that used to play for the Dallas Cowboys with Michael Irvin?
Troy Aikman.
Troy
Aikman,
Aikman.
yeah.
Would they have done the same thing to their son? You know what I mean?
Right.
In my opinion, I would say no. I don't believe so. You know, and it's kind of like, the two things can be true. Do I believe that it could be strictly the issue of what we're talking about, control? Yes, just for putting that aside and saying, do they really believe that he's really as talented? I mean, his numbers are good when you think about his completion rate, his passer rating, what he was able to do under pressure, the fact that he did not have, for whatever reason, his offensive line sucked the whole time he was there. I mean, that kid, I thought he wouldn't make it out. I thought he would be hurt.
Right.
I mean,
90 plus sacks and
yeah, I mean,
some.
they were wearing him out, man. They were
Right.
beating the brakes off of him.
Right.
But yet and still, I mean, and then a lot of times the way he performed under pressure, I just felt like, you know, the kid's got a lot of heart. In light of the fact that he grew up as Deion Sanders' son.
Right.
So he didn't seem weak. You know what I mean? He didn't seem soft at all.
Right.
Nor did Shiloh seem soft. They seem like they got some grit and they got some dog in them, in my opinion. So, unlike what you may be able to argue for LeBron James's son,
Right.
I think those are like two entirely different
Yeah.
situations where I believe that I don't think that nobody could argue if Shador had went in the first round that his dad had anything to do with it. Which, in other words, was he deserving of it?
Right.
And I think that the way he played, I think that he was actually deserving of it. When he lost, he always looked like he had class. When he won, he always looked like he had class. There was never ever any signs. Again, I'm not in the room in the interview room, but it makes you, if you're an outsider looking in, and someone brought that race to your attention, you would like have to go,
Right.
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Right.
Because it just seemed kind of weird, and it also, man, it's also kind of disheartening because we always think that reason we gravitate to sports because we think that the playing field is a little bit more equal, and that basically your talent and hard work could get you there. I don't believe that. There's just nothing in me that believes that there was 143 players
Yeah.
that were better than him, and I know a lot of it is positional, and a lot of teams didn't need a quarterback, so to speak. And a lot of it is business, as to do we dump this kind of money in this position or do we, that sort of thing. At the same time, it's just like, wow.
Well, we've seen confident quarterbacks. We've seen some cocky and arrogant quarterbacks. We
Yeah.
have that were not brothers. We've seen Baker Mayfield, right?
Right.
We saw Johnny Manziel,
Yeah.
right? And these were guys that had that same bravado, so to speak,
Right.
and they would have some of the same antics on the field. But when we look at that there is something there to say that again, there is that standard
Yeah.
of number one. We're talking about quarterback one, QB one position. Remember, it hasn't been 30 years where they didn't think brothers could play that position
Right.
at all.
Absolutely.
So we're still in the midst of changing people's minds at this juncture in 2025 of playing the position. You have arguably right now one of the best quarterbacks in the league, Lamar Jackson. Remember, when he comes out of Louisville, they're talking about him being a receiver.
Right.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
This kid in college was tearing it, but now we're talking about receiver, right?
Yeah.
You go to Cordell Stewart, who was at Colorado before them.
Right.
Again, he came out, did the same thing. They were winning, did his thing. When he comes in, you can play receiver.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we are, of course, it is something and it is an issue of race where let's not forget we're not that far removed. Warren Moon was like the guy who everybody was like, okay, this kid, Doug Williams,
Yeah.
right, comes in. We're not that far removed
Right.
from that. So now here we are in 2025, and of course, it definitely is that issue that is there. But that's in every single profession that we're in.
Yeah.
When we're in this position where we are not the owners, and we do not set that standard, right? So now we are looking at the how through their lenses, not our own, right? So we're looking at that, being told that you can't play that quarterback. Well, now we got a guy that could play the quarterback, and he's in the mix, and he could do his thing. He might not be the top tier quarterback, a Mike Vick when Mike Vick came through.
Yeah.
You know, all the stuff that was said about Mike Vick and his study ethic and different things like that. But he was just an exceptional talent. All the interviews that he gave, hey, taking the position for granted didn't mean that he didn't care about it. It was just he was that type of athlete.
Right.
A lot of people didn't like that, right?
Yeah.
How dare you come in, not have to study your playbook and still do what you did
Right.
in the manner that you did it, in the fashion that you did it. Wait a minute. We got guys that got to study all night, their playbooks and different things. You got the Manning brothers, who they have another brother who helps them break down game film, who helps them get ready, you know, and works with offensive coordinators and different things of that nature. So it is that. And it is a situation where that race at that position is going to be always in the conversation. It's always going to be in the conversation because, like I said, we're talking about 3 decades where they said brothers couldn't play that position, and they wouldn't even take a chance on a brother playing that position.
Yeah, but I think the big mystery is, with in everybody's mind, is whether it boiled back down to something that Shador did, or you know, his personality or whatever, or whether it sways towards his father. You know, and I think that's the big question in everybody's mind, because when you look at 32 teams, man, come on, and then you're talking about 5th round,
Right.
Come on, man, that's overboard. That's too much. That's
Right.
like, you know, no, you're not going to do this. But I
Right.
can understand. You know, I can understand some coaches probably feeling, or some owners probably feeling that, okay, Deion's probably going to continue to be in his life. We might tell him, look, this is the script you got to follow. Pops might be in your ear saying, no, you ain't got to do it. And I can understand them saying, no, we don't want to bring this on. But 32 teams.
That some of them had a need for a quarterback. That's
Correct.
right.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's no reason to think. I personally don't believe that Deion would have. There's no reason to believe that Deion would have intervened and told his son to do something different than what his team wanted him to do. I don't even really believe it's that kind of a. Deion doesn't really even give me that type of a vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think that sometimes, he said something one time. I was watching a clip where he says, you know, I make people feel uncomfortable. Right? He says, you ever been so clean that when somebody looks at you and then they look at themselves?
Right.
He said, I have that on people.
Right. Right. No doubt.
And, you know, a lot of times it's intimidating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for someone like him who seems to be somewhat of, you know, unapologetic about who he is as a man, the way he's raising his kids, and the way that he responds to things, I mean, you know, I think that it does have, I think that people do feel intimidated by the fact that they're, you know, like he's bigger than the team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes, I mean, that's on you.
Correct.
It's really not, he's paying for your inferiority. in
Right.
many ways.
Right. Yeah.
Like the way they responded when he was, when they drafted him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I want everybody to win, but I do have a question. What you think about that brother that's the general manager of the Cleveland Browns?
I think his answers that he gave on taking was very scripted and calculated, and he didn't let him back him into a corner,
Yeah,
and he did exactly what the owners wanted him to do.
yeah,
Um, he stayed even keel. He didn't give anything away,
mm,
and that is our unfortunately, you use the word unapologetic.
mm,
Deion Sanders have a platform
mm,
to be unapologetic because he had that skill set when he
mm,
played. Floyd Mayweather,
mm,
unapologetic. Muhammad Ali,
mm,
unapologetic. Right? These guys created, or Magic Johnson,
mm,
Irvin Johnson,
yeah,
his character Magic.
mm,
Right? Again, unapologetic. They had that ability to have that character outside of themselves,
mm,
and that was a strategic market move.
mm,
Right?
right,
The brother that's the GM, by him coming out and saying what he said was, "Hey, one thing I want you to know, you're gonna have to earn everything that you get." That statement in itself was a big time statement. As a high school coach, a lot of times we get nowadays, it's just now starting, in the past, 10, 12 years, we got transfers, everybody's
mm,
coming in. You have a lot of parents now that will come in and, hey, I could bring my kid to
mm,
your school, but, he needs 25 shots a game and 17. No, 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 that's 17 this and this, that,
yeah,
and the other. And he needs to play X amount of minutes. No,
yeah,
he's going to compete.
mm,
Yeah.
And some will agree with that, and some will go to the next school,
yeah,
right? And that's the era that we live in. So I said, I think that coach did an excellent job the GM did an excellent job of not backing himself into a corner,
mm,
right? But at the same time, all of his answers were very calculated. And you could tell he talked to somebody,
mm, right,
about how he was going to respond,
mm,
because this is going to be pretty much probably this year.
yeah,
This is going to be the dominating issue in the
mm,
NFL,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
I love it because the eyes will be on Cleveland. We don't get too much fanfare,
Yeah.
but the eyes will be there,
yeah,
and we have to let it play out. But the
mm,
fact that he said he had to compete, let everybody know right there what they're thinking.
mm,
Right? He didn't have to say that. He could have easily said, "Hey, great pick, good kid, great
mm,
talent.
right,
Can't wait to work with him."
yeah,
Yeah.
Didn't say that. Hey, we went in and we let everybody know that, hey, we would love to have him, good talent, but you're going to have to compete here.
yeah,
That statement lets you know already with all the coaches and all the GMs and all the 32 teams what they were already talking about.
mm,
We talk about, and we've heard all the reports of tanking interviews and
mm,
and going in, like you said, saying where you're going to play and what dictates that statement right there. You're going to have to come in and compete. Throw all that out the window, right? You
mm,
did all you did. Your dad said what he said. You thought what you thought. But here,
mm.
can't nothing help you except for your play on the field, and
Correct.
we're going to give you that opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, could he sue the NFL
No,
No.
no, as they
for
say, we
collusion?
we reserve the right
Yeah.
to hire in our hire policy and how we do it. We reserve the right to hire who we see is going to fit and make best for our company and our team.
Do
Yeah.
you think that he could have used the same thing that Colin Kaepernick used as far as the collusion against him?
That would be a
I,
tough one.
I
That
mean,
would be
for
a tough
me,
one.
I think I'd go after it.
Yeah.
I think I would file a lawsuit against the NFL because, you know, I just think that for those teams to have done, I mean, you got 32. I mean, come on, there's no way that that's an accident.
No.
No,
I
no.
mean, there was concerted effort considering how good this kid was. There was no reason, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, that he should not have went higher in the draft. I think he would have been in the first or second round on anybody's board who saw that talent. Um, and it's really that's extremely disturbing that as I think that what happens is that, he I don't think that they really got it in him. I don't think that that's kind of the way based upon the way they responded,
Right.
the way they want to deal with it. But you know, I mean, some people should be boycotted for doing that
Yeah.
because you know, I mean, we teach people, especially young kids, that hey, if you work hard enough,
Yeah.
then you know things are going to happen for
Correct.
you. And you know, I could understand if you said, you know what, he had it in the palm of his hands, but he made this mistake.
Yeah.
He had, you know, to suggest that I know that Chris Carter said that they overplayed their hands. I disagree. They did nothing wrong. Deion Sanders and his sons, based upon the optics, did nothing wrong. And I think, you know, as far as the teams looking at, hey, you know, uh, you know, he's going to come along and he's going to basically have a bigger influence on the game than his coaches, or he's going. I mean, come on, man. I mean, that just seems, you know, are you going to go in front of a jury and tell them that?
Well, the only thing I would have to say is I don't think they did anything. It just depends on how you're looking at it,
Right.
Yeah.
right? When I go on and say, "Hey, definitely there's some teams my son is not playing for," so now we're not talking about 32 teams anymore because some of those teams, especially the lower rung teams who might have needed him, those are the teams you're talking about. So they take themselves off the board. When you say, hey, there's some teams, so it's not, we're talking like it's a 32 team field. When you say that he's not going to play for certain teams, it's no longer 32 teams. It might now be 26, 24, right? And now you get into those 24 teams. Those 24 teams don't
Don't
have a
need a
need for that
quarterback.
quarterback like that. So, you know, so and I think that's what Chris Carter was alluding to when he was saying overplayed their hand. I can't go on well, you can do, you know, like I said, you can do whatever you want to do, but if you do that, definitely there's some coaches saying, hey, we picked, that's a wasted pick. That's like Bo Jackson when he was talking about Tampa Bay and all this stuff that went on to him when he was when he was coming out of Auburn and they wanted to pick him and he said, well, I'm not playing when I go play baseball.
Yeah.
This kid didn't have that type of leverage, right? So you told a team you're not going to come play for him. Then we're saying, well, it's 5 rounds. Well, you already said you weren't going to play for some teams. That's
Yeah.
that's you know, and that has a part to do in what we're talking about. I think when Chris Carter was talking about that, I think that's really when you're saying that he overplayed his hand there. Let's say that statement wasn't made. Now you got 32 teams,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
So and if even if he didn't name the teams, if I'm one of the teams that in the past 10, 12 years hasn't done well, now I got to think, well, wait, is he talking about my team?
Yeah.
Right.
On the, there was a quarterback. I don't know whether it's the quarterback that played for Buffalo or the quarterback that played for the Broncos, who basically went and paid. Wasn't there a quarterback that played Major League Baseball first and did not? I cannot remember who it was. Somebody that just because he didn't want to get drafted by a certain team, and if a certain team drafted him, he was going to do.
Well, that was a threat with John Elway also.
Yeah.
John Elway had the threat coming out of Stanford. I mean,
Yeah.
he was a baseball. He was a two-way guy.
Yeah.
And there was some disputes with him.
Yeah.
Where he was gonna go.
Right. I mean, and if they drafted him, I don't know, man. I mean, you know, I mean, if they were watching that and he says there's certain places that my son isn't going to go. I don't know, man. I'm just saying that if let's just assume that there was some sort of action, some sort of unfair business practices, or some sort of some other cause of action that he may be able to pursue, similar to maybe the Colin Kaepernick situation. I would. What would be their defense?
Well, I can say, and playing devil's advocate here, in the high school basketball game, a coach would call me, and we all know each other. We've either played against each other, we went to college around each other, or we played on the same team. So got a lot of friends throughout California that are coaches. I got a kid come in and get a call from a coach. Hey, this kid is coming to you, right? His dad is talking about transferring to you. Hey, here's the problem that happened for us and why he's coming to you.
Yeah.
If I choose at that time to say, no, this might not be the best fit based on what I heard, is that collusion?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I genuinely got a friend looking out for me. This is my boy calling me now and saying, hey,
Yeah.
Rich, this kid is coming now. You got some tools and he got some skills, but man, he's going to turn your team upside down, and his parents is coming with him.
Yeah.
Right. Is that collusion, and how do we prove that, or is that just one of my partners looking out for me in the coaching world?
I mean, I think that it almost seems like it's all, again, I mean, somebody gonna have to say something
Right.
eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, if they say it's the way he interviewed, then what is it that he did in the interview?
Yeah.
I mean, you have people who are leaking stuff. Well, then, man, come on out, man, and man up and say
Yeah.
what had happened, because eventually, if I was to file a lawsuit, then you would have to answer questions. I would be able to do discovery. I would be able to depose all of the owners. I would be able to depose general managers and figure out, who told you this? Who told you you
Yeah.
couldn't? You know what I mean? And so, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, I just don't see, again, a kid like this. I mean, no one seeing how some of these other knuckleheads, do things like smoking weed
Yeah.
and getting arrested.
Right.
Cam Newton, allegedly stole a computer,
Yeah.
right? And you have so you have these people who are doing all these things. The same thing with my man. You just mentioned him that was from West Virginia. What's his name?
Randy
Randy
Moss.
Moss. Getting catching DVs and getting in fights and all this other kind of stuff. And I don't know where he went in the draft, and I know that Minnesota really gave him a solid. But the whole idea, man, that this kid fell to the fifth round is just crazy to me. And I
Well,
mean, again, I mean, I could be,
let's look at it from this vantage point. Let's take Allen Iverson.
Mhm.
When he was in high school and he gets into that trouble,
Mhm.
we're talking about arguably the best player in two sports,
Mhm.
and a lot of colleges they all backed off of
Right.
him
Yeah.
from that
Absolutely.
one incident.
Right.
But then, and here's what I'm talking about: the ownership. It took John Thompson and us to go get that boy and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
you coming to Georgetown,
Yeah.
and we're gonna give you the shot because we believe in you, and this is what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it." And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Right.
But it took us to come in
Mhm.
and somebody like a John Thompson figure. But those coaches did the same thing. They backed off of him, and all of it was hearsay,
Yeah.
right? And he didn't get any time or anything like that. They detained him and all that, but that trial never went through like that. But all them coaches, you go from being the D1 prospect in two sports to now you don't have any offers on the table,
Yeah.
right? So this isn't the first time that we've seen this type of action. But again, that talent,
Yeah.
right?
The
That talent.
And the fact that this kid is squeaky clean.
He's squeaky
Yeah.
clean.
Now this
Yeah,
one is
that's the-
this one
that's
is
the-
squeaky clean. But let's go to I'll throw another one out there. The same thing that people were saying about a friend of mine, LeVar Ball. Again, I give shout out to those fathers that will go in and
Yeah.
give their sons that skill set and will not throw them to the wolves and be right there.
Yeah.
LeVar did an excellent job. Anytime you got two, arguably three sons in the same household playing professional basketball, that's saying something.
That's saying something.
But at the same time, they looked at the father like the father is cocky. He's the one, and,
Yeah.
he's doing that. But when he took his son and said, "Hey, we're not going to college. We're going to play overseas. We're going to play professional basketball first overseas and come in." Everybody looked at him like, "You're crazy." This thing, but the kid wasn't penalized. But at the same time, the owners were a little. They that talk was there.
Yeah.
Came back from overseas and said, "Wait a minute, this kid can play. He done grew about 3-4 inches, and he's stronger, bigger, faster, and he's giving all these kids the business. These rookies here at these camps, we're going to take him."
Yeah.
Did when he did not do the combine, does that hurt him? I mean, if he goes out there in the combine and those numbers are there, We have do we have a are we talking in the, and I'm throwing it out there, are we talking in a different manner? If he went and just had a great 40 time, gave excellent combine in all the different areas that you have to do, and he proved that, hey, wait a minute, I'm a pocket guy because this was our scheme. I did this because this is what my OCs asked me to do, but I'm an athlete,
Yeah.
right? So we never really got to see
Yeah.
all of that. So let's say he goes to the combine. Are we still having this conversation as well? You know, and these are this will make this is such a unique
Yeah.
situation because it's so many variables out there that are
Yeah.
unknown.
Yeah.
But my question is, do you think he's gonna take this in stride, whether or not it knocked the wind out of him by going to Cleveland, or do you think he gonna rise to the occasion?
I think the first thing that Dion, even with Shiloh, the first thing that he said, look in the camera and you tell him what you need to tell him. Hey, we want to thank God. We want to thank
Yeah.
for giving the opportunity.
Yeah.
With that as your foundation, now you know nothing can be against you. You know,
Yeah.
and he's gonna he I think this is not a wake up call. I think deep down inside, I didn't think he knew he was gonna slide that far, but I knew he knew he was gonna slide.
Yeah.
He didn't show up to Green Bay with like all the other guys. All the D1s that was projected to go early, and they had the suits, and they're coming out and they're walking. He wasn't there. He had his own little private party, so that led me to believe that hey, they knew he was going to slip some, right? They knew he might not go first round. They just didn't know how far he was going to slip. But by him not being there,
Yeah.
that showed hey, they weren't confident that he was going to go in that first tier, right? But I think now with him going to Cleveland and him still having his same foundation, which is his religious set and his belief in his creator, I think that is going to do nothing but add some fuel to that fire, which he already had. But I think now he has something to prove, and it's always a
Correct.
different thing when you got something to prove.
Yeah.
You know, and you coming in right off the way, proving it to your organization first, and that was the one thing. But the first thing what people are not talking about, no one knows what's the first thing this kid did when he went into town. He went to
Yeah.
John Marshall High School in the city and went and mentored and talked to them kids in the hood, right in the hood, and talked to them about grades and ball and balance, um, being a good person. So, quite the contrary, these are the things that are not being
Correct.
reported, right?
Correct.
Where the article came out, and there was an article that said, hey, Cleveland was excited. Here's a kid that invested in the community right away before he even put his pads on, right? So that goes to show you, you're investing in your community and you're coming in already, you're going and you're talking to these young brothers and sisters out here. That goes to show you in the right direction.
Correct.
And that, again, to Deion Sanders' testament, shows you how he was raised.
Correct.
I might have a $250,000 watch on, and I might drive a Lamborghini or whatever he's driving, but his roots are strong in that community and doing what he has to do to help out. So that leads me to believe he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
He's going to go and do his thing.
I think he is. I mean, I think he's really, you know, he's definitely a humble kid, and I think he's always been humble. Speaking of humble, what about that prank call? You hear about that?
No.
All right.
Well, one of the sons of the, was it the defensive
Was it the
coordinator?
Falcons? Was it the guy from the Falcons?
Yeah, one of the coach's sons from one of the Falcons called him and said that he was calling from did he say Green Bay? I can't remember what team he said he was from. Called his personal phone and said we're getting ready to get you.
Well, you know how they give you have
What?
the
Yeah,
phones that
prank
only
call.
the NFL has the
Right.
numbers of the phones,
Yeah.
and somehow this kid got the information and called him and said, hey, you know,
Oh, wow.
and he made it seem like, you know, we know you've been waiting
Uh-huh.
a little bit. And he said, yeah, I've been waiting on you. He said, well, you're gonna wait a little bit longer, such and such, and hung the phone up. And they videoed it, and yeah. So I think the Falcons and the
Yeah,
coach both
the-
got fines.
Yeah, a total
Yeah.
of $300,000. I think the team 200 and he got 100.
Again, that's what we're talking about. That position and the standard, just a belief set that we don't feel you should be here. All right, we don't feel you should be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I can tell you this: when I went to Chapman University, private school, coming in and professors first thing, the brothers and sisters on campus, I come into class first thing, hey, what sport do you play? Right,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things, the belief. Hey, wait a minute, I'm a I belong here. but they don't believe you should be in that position. Same thing with this. Hey, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that you have all this NIL money, you got millions, this, that, and the other? We don't believe you should be here.
Right.
And that prank call was just, man, you know, some of the most cold-hearted stuff
Yeah, that's
to do that, and that's the most. Some of those guys have been working to get to that moment
Yeah.
all their lives, and they've been training, they've been dreaming, and that's their vision, and they're there. And to do something that cold, that diabolical, yeah,
And he downplayed it. I mean, he basically said, "I forgive them. They're young, and
yeah.
I don't blame them." That was his response, you know. But yeah, man, it's crazy, man. But I mean, I think in the final analysis, I mean, I think he's going to do well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my personal opinion, but man, that's a lot of money he had to give up. But I also believe that, you know, I still believe, you know, there's a part of me that, you know, understands. I mean, like I remember seeing something, and you remember looking at the story about Venus and Serena Williams
Yeah.
when the guy was interviewing her,
Mm-hmm.
and she talked about being great, and then the guy was pressing her on it,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
his father got mad
Yeah, he
because
got
of it.
mad.
Right.
You know, the same thing with you saw the same thing happen with Tiger Woods.
Right.
Yeah.
You saw an interview. There's always this thing about being, you know, a black athlete or black in anything. You know, even when Malcolm, when he said he wanted to be a lawyer,
Be a
and the
carpenter.
teacher said that, you know, that's not out for you for
Yeah.
you know.
And you would be a carpenter.
Right.
You would be like
You know,
Jesus.
so so they just basically, you know, I think a lot of this, you know, in my opinion, you know, it still has a little bit of that taint to it. I mean, there's always several factors. It's never really one. I think that, but do I believe that 32 owners would have looked at this situation the same had Shador not had been black, nor it had a strong black father? I think it would be different.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
I think a lot of it does have. I mean, you know, whether it's overt, covert, or unintentional. I mean, it speaks. It has an impact on how we saw him. Would we even have this conversation about a white quarterback? Would we? You know, would they even said, "Hey, I don't know. He's a little brash, and he needs to learn his lesson." You know, he needed to. You know, I don't even
Yeah.
think we would
Right.
even
No, we wouldn't.
had that
Right.
conversation.
Right.
You know, they would have said, well, you know, I think every team would want somebody with that kind of a confidence. Well, you know, we want a dog on the team to lead it.
Yeah.
To walk into a room and to tell somebody that I'm going to change this franchise.
Right.
Well, you look at a black kid, you have one look at it one way. You look, a white kid says it, you may look at it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just, you know, your own biases. And I see it as being, you know, a little bit of that, man. But, you know, I wish him well, man. And I do take my hat off to the way that they handled it. And I take my
Right.
hat off to prime time, man.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
The way he dealt with it. You know, it was
I'm
good,
just
man.
hoping the fans come out too.
I think they
Yeah.
will,
Oh,
man. I
yeah.
think.
You know, they already. I'll be back there in July and be in training camp. I'm going. That's my hometown. Right, shout out to Berea, Ohio, where the Browns training facilities are. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna get over there and I'll be there in July checking them out.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was nice, man. And you mentioned about him going to the school
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
talking to the kids
Yeah.
and trying
Right
to
away.
impart his knowledge. I mean, so I think, you know, he may be pressured into being. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up starting before the season's over.
Not at all. Not at all. I think he has a great opportunity to go in and I will say a great opportunity for him to come in and show what he can do right away. I think with Flacco being there, he's there and he'll have a mentor capacity,
Yeah.
mentorship, and somebody to bounce ideas off of. And he was working with Tom Brady anyway.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so he got tools.
Yeah, he does. You mean it's that time, man? Huh? That's a little bit too quick. Man, I definitely appreciate you, you know, coming in and being the guest, man, and chiming in on that subject, man.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
Appreciate your
always.
knowledge, man. It's always great having you here, man. I definitely appreciate you. And we had a lot of viewers, a whole bunch, man.
All right.
But at any rate, man, for all of you, thanks everyone for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, same channel. Until that time, stay blessed.
You're listening to KCAA Loma Linda at 106.5 FM, K293CF Moreno Valley.
You're listening to an encore presentation of this